Welcome to the Pat White Show. Well, way back 20 years ago, I was working as a talk show host on a 50,000 watt AM radio station, WOWO in Fort Wayne, Indiana. At that time, we were the number one radio station in the entire northeastern Indiana area. WOWO was the top dog. And I was doing the afternoon drive following Rush Limbaugh, who worked from noon to 3, and I did 3 to 6. Like I said, they call it afternoon drive. Well, I had a newsman who sat on the other side of the glass. His name was Lee Burdorf. And one day, instead of Lee sitting there in his normal news chair, there was a young lady there who I'd never seen before. And I went, who the heck is that? And so I contacted Lee and I said, who's that? He says, hey, she's an IU grad, just got out of college. She's got plenty of awards. She's top notch, and this is her first job in regular media. And I said, okay, well, fine. Got a new news person. Her name was Aishah Hasnie. I didn't know that name. It was kind of different to me, but turns out she was Pakistani by birth. But anyway, she became my newswoman back in those days. And she was young. She was vibrant. She was very, she was very naive in a lot of ways. I remember one of the days they had a talk like a pirate day. And I would talk of these phrases like a pirate, and I would talk to her. She's a big newswoman, because you converse back and forth with a newswoman. And my producer back at that time was the lovely and talented Queen Diane. And she was a fabulous producer. But anyway, so there we had Aishah there as our news person. And when I was doing the talk like a pirate day, Lee Burdorf is standing behind her, and he could hear what I'm saying to her. She doesn't totally understand it because it's in kind of a pirate jargon, if you will, old time arg, that kind of stuff. And I was throwing these lines out, and Lee knew what I was saying, and he was, laughing. Aishah was just sitting there going, huh? Didn't know. Was just kind of, dumbfounded by the whole thing. But she was a great newswoman. She did her job fabulously. And one day, I would say probably maybe a year later, year and a half, she walked in the studio, and she said, hey, can I talk to you? I said, sure. So we're sitting there, and she said, listen, I got to tell you, I have just been given an offer by a local CBS television affiliate, which is WANE TV, to come and work for them and get out of radio and go to work in the TV. Do you think I should do it? I looked at Aishah and I said, Aish, are you kidding? Take the job. This is a once-in-a-lifetime deal. You're one of those people that's made for TV. Now, keep in mind, she was younger. This is 20 years ago. Well, ultimately, she went on to Wayne TV and became a person of their newscast. And here's some pictures of her. She was doing newscasts. As a matter of fact, 2010, when I was given my walking papers by WOWO, Aishah called me up. She said, can we interview you? Because I'd been on the air for like 14 years. And people want to know what happened. And I said, well, Aishah, you're the only person in the media I'm going to grant an interview to, because I know you're going to be honest, you're going to be fair, you're going to be straight, because she'd worked with me for a long time. And she agreed. Fine. She came over to the house, sat there, did an interview with me, and did it extremely well. And I was grateful for it. Now, later on, Aishah was noticed by another station down in Indianapolis. It was a Fox News channel. I think it was channel 59. They noticed her from Wayne TV, and they, offered her a job down in Indianapolis. And she took it. Well, then she became famous down in Indy at Fox 59. And as she's growing up, she's becoming, frankly, more attractive. And ultimately, she was contacted by, Fox News in New York. She ultimately left Fox in Indianapolis and Fox in the Midwest, where she was working in Fox stations, and she went on to New York City. Now, when you started Fox, you started at the bottom of the totem pole, which means you work overnight. And that's what she did. Took the overnight slot, worked, did everything, did the news stories, and every once in a while, you'd see her. Hey, there's Aishah. There's Aishah. Well, gradually, she got more and more, and she got better and better. As she got better and better, she started getting better assignments. And suddenly I saw her doing fill-in for newscast. And then ultimately, she became the chief Washington, D.C. reporter at the Capitol. And now she's doing some big time newscasts. Well, Aishah, that was still Aishah. Aishah, to the best of my knowledge, is still single. She's from Pakistan. Her family moved to the United States when she was 6 years old. They lived in Bedford, Indiana. I believe her family was royalty, so they got out of Pakistan because there's a lot of apparently bad stuff going on. And she was raised in Bedford. And her father was an engineer at an automobile company. She likes to shoot rifles, and she's very good at it. And she's got other sisters. She's fine. She's great. She's doing well in Washington, D.C. And to the best of my knowledge, like I said, she's still single. Now, wherever she's going to go, well, she's going to go up. Eventually, I probably see her every day knowing what's going on. Do we stay in touch? Occasionally we do. It's just so nice to say that young lady, Aishah Hasnie, got her first job in broadcasting in Fort Wayne, Indiana at WOWO Radio, 50,000 watt, and she was on Afternoon Drive with me. And I'm proud to say I was the one that said to her, Aishah, take the job in TV. It'll be the best thing for you. And it turns out it was. And Aishah has become a star. And now you know. As you may have heard, President Trump a few months ago issued out one of his many executive orders. This particular executive order said, NPR and PBS been living on the public dole. They've been getting a lot of their funding from taxpayers. That's you and me. And he said, look, that was established a long time ago, and it was back in the Broadcasting Act of 1967. So that's when PBS and all the other stuff got started back in the 1960s. Keep that in mind when we talk about this. So you get your PBS stations, you get your NPR, and now they're saying, hey, the president wants to take away our funding. Well, think about it this way. NPR and 3 Colorado radio stations, NPR radio stations, have now filed a lawsuit against the president and a whole bunch of other people in the administration, saying that it is a violation of the Constitution and the First Amendment protections. They said, and I'm quoting here, take a look. The executive order is a clear violation of the Constitution and the First Amendment protections of freedom of speech, association, and freedom of the press. It is an affront to the rights of NPR and NPR's 246 member stations, which are locally owned, nonprofit, non-commercial media organizations serving all 50 states. Today, we challenge the constitutionality in the nation's independent courts. And this was done by a lady by the name of Catherine Mayer. You see her right here. Catherine Mayer is the head of PBS. Well, here's the deal. Oh, and the head of NPR. Turns out that one of the NPR's longest and best-known writers recently wrote a pretty lengthy article saying he got out of NPR because it's gone so far to the left. He said virtually 90-some% of the people in their newsroom, the writers, are all Democrats. He said they have gone completely over to the left. In my world, and I think maybe your world too, if someone happens to be politically focused in one area and not in, say, another area, then they are kind of, well, to the left or to the right. Doesn't matter. Either way, if you got too much of one and too little of the other, you have no balance. And right now, NPR, PBS, NPR in particular, is very, very left-oriented. Even the former writers say the same thing. Not me. It's coming from them. Now, they're saying you're violating the Constitution. No, actually, here's what it is. The president's saying, we're taking away your funding. Now, NPR says, well, we reach 99% of the population. Well, reach and listen to are two different animals. You see, all the time, radio stations around the nation, they get rated. They're rating services. And they come out and see what people are listening to, because that's the way various radio stations in cities know who has the most listeners, who they can charge the most money for. Turns out when all of the ratings come out, NPR and PBS, well, NPR in particular, they are rated. And the people who listen to that particular venue, that particular station, is very small compared to what everybody else is listening to. Now, here's the deal. President Trump does not want to take away and close down NPR. He doesn't want to close down PBS. He just says we're not going to keep funding them from the taxpayer dollars. That's all this is about. Should they be funded with your and my taxpayer dollars? And if they happen to be one particular venue or one particular leaning a particular direction, well, a lot of people are going to say, wait a minute, that's not what I want to pay for. What he's saying is simple. Let them operate independently. They say, well, we're non-commercial. Yes, they are. They're getting awfully close to being commercial. But if you want to go out, you want to survive, you get advertisers to fund your station just like every radio and TV station does in this market. All of them. They're not being funded by the taxpayer. No other radio stations except NPR and PBS are funded by taxpayers. So what the president is saying is, hey, we're taking away your funding. And you operate exactly the same way you want. Now, I've heard it's been said that the NPR station will lose like 40% of the money they're getting. 40%, they can go out and put their people on the street and sell to advertisers exactly the same way that regular radio and TV people have to do. It makes it fair because no TV station or radio station is being funded by taxpayers except NPR and TV PBS. Just saying, they're arguing their constitutional rights have been violated. No, they're not. They just are saying taxpayer dollars should not, I repeat, should not be paying for something, and they're the only ones who get that right. It's time America says, hey, you're on your own. If you think you're that good and you're exposed to everybody in the nation, then prove it. And use your sales staff, your sales force to go out and get your own advertisers to cover your cost of existence. It's fair, it's right, and it's in an executive order from the President of the United States. Let's see what the courts have to say about this. It's going to be very interesting. If you're one of the unfortunate people that gets to drive on Coldwater Road from DuPont up to Union Chapel for your goings and comings every day, whether you're going to work or wherever you're going, you might be wondering what's going on with the city and their plan to widen Coldwater Road. Well, let me give you the latest and give you a hint of what you're going to have in the future. All right, so here's the deal. The city council has given the city engineers permission to purchase 52 pieces of property along Coldwater Road from DuPont up to Union Chapel. Now, they have to purchase those properties to be able to extend the road either side, both sides. Now, they're going to be doing that in the year 2026. Plus, they've got to get all the ground ready, the underground stuff, the digging and what have you, the cabling and everything you can think of, because a lot's going to be done to that road. And frankly, it's going to take a while. They're going to start it in 2027. I can tell you it probably could take a year to get finished. Depends on how long it takes and what they're doing. But I'll tell you what's going on. When it's finished, you will have a road that contains one northbound lane, one southbound lane, and a center turn lane. Now, it'll span out into certain areas when they're going into certain housing developments. The road's going to widen out a little bit to take care of those things. And at the intersection, it's going to, sort of like Union Chapel and down to Coldwater Road. You got to widen all those things out. But the entire road is going to have a sidewalk going completely up and down the sidewalk from Union Chapel all the way down to Coldwater, or all the way down to DuPont. And so you're going to have lighting all the way on that stretch. So if you've driven it at night, you know it's not really well lit, but it's not going to all be lit up. Sidewalks, it's going to have all ADA stuff, everything you could possibly want, but it's going to be one lane north and one lane south. Now you're saying to yourself, well, wait a minute, we got one lane north, one south right now, and the traffic is terrible. Well, yeah, but here's what it's going to look like. If you'd like to know exactly what your road is going to look like when it's done, all you have to do is to drive on Gump Road between Lima Road and Coldwater. Now, you can either get down Gump Road from Coldwater or Lima Road, whichever way you want. Check out that road. This is what you're going to be getting, folks. It is going to have 11-foot lanes on either side, center turn lane, and you drive on it. Well, frankly, it ain't all that bad. It actually looks pretty spacious, and I think it's going to handle the cars. But if you want to know what your road's going to look like, all you have to do, turn on to Gump Road off of Coldwater or off of Lima. Drive it and say to yourself, so that's what Coldwater Road's going to look like when they're done. Well, that's pretty much the deal, folks. Now you know. It's going to take a while. Could go clear into 2027, which is 2 years from now. But they got to get all the property built up and all the basic underground work done. And when they start working on the road, it's going to be nasty. It's going to be two-way. It's going to be a pain. It's going to be slow. It's going to be dusty. And you're going to sit there probably screaming and yelling. But when it's done, I think you're going to like it. So now you know what's going on. Coldwater Road from DuPont to Union Chapel will be expanded, and it won't be until 2027. And now you know. You know, over the years, one of the biggest things that we hear a lot is global warming, climate change. Oh my gosh, what have we done to create this situation? And what must we do? Be taxed more, do this, do that. It's a whole litany of things that people in power want us to do to change our climate. And it's our fault. Carbon dioxide, too much of this, too much of that. Well, some scientists over at Cardiff University in the UK, I presume they're pretty smart. And here's what they're telling us. Take a look. New article just came out that said, hey, guess what? We're going back into an ice age in 11,000 years because the Earth moves weird. All right, here's the deal. The Earth's orbit around the sun is not like a regular circle. It's an oval, okay? It's an oval, not a regular circle. It's an oval. And it's called orbital eccentricity. And that kind of works, kind of weird and strange, but it's an oval, not a circle. And that means the Earth distance to the sun varies throughout the year. Sometimes we're closer to the sun, sometimes we're farther away from the sun. And then the Earth tilts, right? It tilts. Well, that's called orbital precession. And then on the axis, you got another thing called obliquity. Well, anyway, all of these things go together. And because the Earth turns, the way it goes around the sun is not a pure circle, it's an oval, that we get various changes in our climate, in our world. What it means is you develop ice ages. They do happen. And they're like every 20,000, 40,000, whatever the number is. But these scientists have said, look, we figured this out. It's the way the sun rotates, and it's not a circle. It's an oval, the way the Earth tilts, and just the way things shift in space, because we're not really in a perfect alignment. So things change. And as they change, climate changes on the Earth. Therefore, it's our fault for climate change, according to these scientists over in England, is BS. In the next 11,000 years, they say we're going to be having global cooling. You know, way back in 1977, there was a publication out called Newsweek magazine. I don't even know if they still publish it. You know, like Time magazine, Newsweek. The cover of Newsweek magazine said that, hey, the world is going into global cooling. This was the cover of Newsweek, and the people at Newsweek are certainly smarter than the rest of us, right? They said we're going into global cooling. Well, now suddenly it's global warming. Well, the scientists over there in England said, they're nonsense. It's the way the Earth moves around the sun. Not in a circle, it's in the oval. It's the way we tilt. Back and forth, things change, and over the years, this creates a situation where the climate changes. It's done by nature, not by what you do, what I do, or anybody else does, or what the cows do. Just so you're aware of this. There's the story. There's the article right there. You're seeing it. And these folks from Cardiff University said, can we figure this out? And there's a way they understand how it looks, how it works. And now you know. So realize in the next 11,000 years, we're going to have an ice age, and those glaciers could come back down over the part of North America, just like they did the last time we had an ice age. because it's Mother Nature, folks. It's strictly Mother Nature. Well, what do you say we spend a couple of minutes talking about things that make you go, wonder why that is? Well, I just had one of those things happen to me. Now, here's something to think about. Pretty well anywhere you go in our state and probably every other state in the United States, if you go and buy alcohol, chances are pretty good when you check out, you're going to get carded. Now, especially if you look young, they're going to card you for sure. But if you look old, maybe they're going to say, okay, fine, you look old. But more often than not, when you go to stores, every store says, hey, you got to do that because their computer checkout system shows if you're taking out liquor, checking out it through the computer or through the register system, you got to have a date in there to match up with the checkout of the liquor. All right, I understand that and I get that. But today, well, I had a thing that made me go, wonder about that. Here's the deal. So I had to go to the grocery, pick up some things for dinner tonight and some things that you kind of need for longer term stuff, like the eggs and the bacon and the biscuits and those kind of things. Oh, and some squash and asparagus because I like those things. But I saw something hanging up in the wall and I said, it's barbecuing time of year. It's the time you get out and you want to fire up that grill, burn some meat. That's what we do. We're Americans. Well, so I saw him walking down the aisle. I said, hey, there's one of those fancy electronic lighter things. Because normally when you took out the barbecue grill, you turn it and it clicks and the light goes on and your flames come on your barbecue grill. Well, mine did that until the wind blew over my grill a few weeks back and that clicker don't work anymore. So have to use a lighter to light the flame on the barbecue. All right, well, that's perfectly fine. So there I said, I'm in the grocery store and I go down the lane. Here's the thing. And here's what to take a look at. One of these. There it is, folks. An official torch flame to light up my barbecue. And it's from Scripto. So I figured that's a pretty good name. I could handle that. So I go through the grocery store and I check out my eggs and my bacon and my biscuits and what have you. And the last thing I check out is my flame, my torch. Then I am asked, can I see your ID? And I said, what? Can I see your ID? What's your birth date? Well, I stood there and going, wait a minute, has this got liquor in it somewhere? There's booze in here? I said, what do you need? I need your ID. Okay, gave my ID out. Here's my information. Here's my date of birth. Here's what have you. They type it into the register, yada, yada, yada. And the deal goes through and I finish checking out of the grocery store. Well, here's the weird part. All right, I understand having to have my ID to buy alcohol. I get that. That's the way Mother Nature works. That's the way the rules work. But what I didn't know was to check out a lighter to light my barbecue. I now must produce my ID to showing my birth date to prove I'm older than, I don't know. Didn't tell me what age I had to be, but I had to show my ID to get a lighter. So let that be a warning to any of you out there that are thinking, I got to go over and get something for the barbecue. Make sure when you go out, you have your ID and your information, because that cashier at the grocery store could ultimately say, can I see your ID? That's what happened to me. If that's an anomaly, I understand. But now you know. And now you know. For the longest time, car making companies have been trying to tell you and me what cars we should be buying. Said, pick up this car, get this car. And when they went to electric cars, they tried to say, hey, you want a muscle car, electric car? Got to get one of ours because it'll go from 0 to 60 and nothing flat. I understand that, but there's a lot of problems with electric cars that even muscle car people figured out. Perfect example, the Dodge Charger Daytona RT. Now you say Dodge Charger, muscle car, right? Dodge Charger RT Daytona, woohoo, muscle car. Trouble is, they came out with an electric version of one. And guess what? Ain't nobody buying it. That's right. Nobody is buying the Dodge Charger electric Daytona RT. It's an electric car. As a matter of fact, some of these cars, they actually have to put speakers on to make them sound with the injected sound so that they sound like a real car. Because frankly, they're electric cars. But putting in some sort of fake sound in there through speakers is not going to make anything better. It is what it is. Turns out that dealers across the country have 3,500 Charger RTs sitting on their lots. 3,500. And now a lot of these dealers are doing exactly what they can, selling these as cheap as they can possibly get by to get them off their hands, because they're paying floor plan pricing on these things. They're paying interest on these cars, sitting there doing nothing that nobody wants. And it's costing them money. Now, the only car they got remaining is the thing called the Scat Pack. And but Scat Pack, how about this with a listen to this potential engine here. A twin turbo 3.0 liter straight six pack. You heard me right. A twin turbo 3.0 straight six pack. Yep. That should be coming out later this year. So if you want to have a straight six, and I haven't seen one of those in a long time, twin turbos on it, 3.0 liter. Should be an interesting car when that one comes out. And then they're going to have that's going to be some of the variant stuff they got coming out. But if you want to get yourself what looks like a muscle car, but, well, sounds like a vacuum cleaner, you can get yourself a Dodge Charger Daytona RT electric vehicle. Prices have been slashed on these things, and dealers want to get them off the lots in the worst possible way they can. So, the prices of these things? Well, turns out the original price of the Dodge RT for 2025, I'm going to use that number, base price for this car, $61,595. And then, on top of that, they throw in a destination charge of $1,995 for a destination charge. So you're going to spend almost $64,000 just getting this car in that, frankly, nobody wants. Well, that's what's happening. Now, the 2025 Scat Pack, that's got a base price of $75,980. Well, here's something to think about. Electric cars are turning out to be a joke. People don't want electric cars because they realize they got batteries into them that go bad. No batteries go bad, they're going to cost you a whole lot of money. And trying to sell one of those off, get rid of it. What do you think the dealers are cutting the prices on them so much? Nobody wants them. 3,500 cars sitting on dealer lots, and they're having to sell them for as cheap as they could possibly get away with it, probably undercutting what they're paying for them. That's how bad it's gotten. But here's something to think about. Maybe, just maybe, the people over at Stellantis just might be coming out with a V8. It's rumored. Nobody knows if it's going to be true or not. But finally getting a muscle engine into a muscle car. Because that's what people want who drive those things. Not an electric vehicle that sounds like an electric mower. Not the plan. Nobody's going to buy it. And who the heck is going to spend close to $65,000 for an electric car? Think about that one. But if you want to take the chance, find a Dodge dealer with a whole lot of them on his lot, and he might be able to sell it to you for really, really cheap. But once you get it, you know what you got. So just be cautious, and you have been warned. Many years ago, there used to be a late-night television show starring an Indiana lad, Late Night with David Letterman. Used to see it every night, and it was kind of amusing because one of the things he had that was kind of funny was his top 10 list. He'd give you the top 10 things, and they were usually pretty funny. Well, there's a new top 10 list that has just been released, and frankly, it's not so funny because the top 10 list that is just released was the 10 gloomiest cities in America based upon the cloud cover in a year. So whoever had the most number of days of cloud cover, they're on the list. we have the top 10. So let's going to start off with number 10. Turns out the worst number of cloudy days for America for any city is Toledo. Toledo's number 10 on the list. Then number 9 on the list, Fort Wayne, Indiana. That's right, folks. We have 196 days out of the year. We have gloom. We're number 9 on the list. But surprisingly enough, number 8, Columbus, Ohio. Seems like we're all in the same pretty much latitude, aren't we? Number 7 on the list happens to be in Washington, Spokane. That's Western Washington. You get the storms coming in off the West Coast, and then it hits Spokane, but you also get storms coming down from the north, so they hit Spokane's coming down from the northwest. So Spokane's number 7. Number 6, other side of the state of Washington, Seattle. Number 6, they get the weather that comes in off the ocean, off the West Coast, and they get hit, and they've had some pretty interesting weather in Seattle. Puts them number 6 on the list with the most gloomy. Number 5 on the list, we're going back to the Midwest now. We go back to, you ready? Cleveland. Cleveland is number 5 on the list. They have 202 days. And number 4 on the list, staying in the same latitude, pretty much in the Midwest, is Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's got 203 days of gloom every year. Well, worse than Pittsburgh is number 3, Buffalo, New York. They got a lot of snow up in Buffalo, a lot of stuff on the lake, all that lake stuff that comes across. It affects us too. Buffalo's number 3 on the list, 208 days. Number 2 on the list, surprisingly, is Portland, Oregon. That's right, Portland, Oregon has 222 days out of 365 days a year, cloud cover, gloom and doom. Why don't many people up in Portland? Who knows? And the number 1 city in the United States for the most number of gloomy days in a 365-day year is Anchorage, Alaska. Now, I've lived in Anchorage. It's a pretty nice city, but yes, it does get cloudy. I mean, they get snow up there and everything else. But I tell you, the summer, it's glorious up there. A lot of cool things up in Alaska. Trust me. But now the top 10. Worst city is good old Anchorage, Alaska. Number 10 on the list, Toledo, Ohio. Didn't John Denver have a song called Saturday Night in Toledo, Ohio? It's like being nowhere at all. Seemed to me I recall that song. But Toledo's number 10, but Fort Wayne, we're number 9. Nothing to celebrate, but now you know something you didn't know. The gloomiest cities in America, and we're on it. Just how about that? Well, welcome to Chemistry 101. And what we're going to do in today's class is tell you the origination of a word you probably use all the time, but you've said, oh, where'd that word come from? Well, this one you may find kind of interesting, so follow along. You know, there's lots of words that we use in the English language. You wonder where the heck that came from. And usually they're derivative of something else. And I'm going to give you a particular one. Let's say you like a bag of chips. There's potato chips. There's all sorts of different chips. There's a Pringles. I don't know what the Pringles, well, Pringles came from potatoes, but there's all sorts of different chip names out there. But there's another one that you've heard of. Thing go, give me some nachos. You order those up at the restaurant, right? Yeah, I can order a nachos over here. And nachos, well, you get the chips, but you get that cheese, right? The nacho cheese. And then let's say a grocery store, you want to make your own. You buy a jar of nacho cheese. And you're saying, well, nachos. And everybody knows the term, hey, I like nachos, I get nachos, I eat nachos this, nachos that. Well, where did the term nachos come from? You're going, really? I don't know. Well, that's why we're having a class today to discuss the origination of the term nachos. Believe it or not, it's a chemical name. Now, I want you to take a look at this. This is the chemical composition of sodium citrate. Now, sodium citrate essentially is sodium and a citrate that goes with it. That's what's mixed into cheese to make the cheese creamy. If you look closely at sodium, its designation is Na. Citrate, CHO. And different molecules, different number of molecules will make it up. But you get NaCHO. See how that comes out? And what does NaCHO spell? nacho. Now I think you may understand. Now that you're calling, hey, I want to get me an order of nachos, it's actually a scientific name for sodium citrate, which is what makes cheese creamy. Now, most of you are going to go, really? Oh, big deal. That can't be legit. Yes, it is, because in the tables, sodium is Na, citrate CHO, depending on how many molecules and everything. It's not a big thing, but now you may understand why that word is used to delineate a type of cheese that you have on your chips or type of chips that you could buy. I want some of those nacho chips, cheese-covered, cheese-tasting chips. So now you understand the term nachos is actually the scientific name of sodium citrate. Guess what? You just learned something in Chemistry 101, and you're welcome. Happy